Hello, and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Socially Holistic helps coaches and holistic entrepreneurs and women in heart-centered businesses make sense of social media so they can build their own online network and get more clients. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a 5-star review of this podcast. Please leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more heart-centered businesses will be successful. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Socially Holistic Podcast. This is episode number 8 with Carole Ann Rice from The Real Coaching Company. Welcome, Carole Ann.
Hi, Holly. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. Good. I've just come back from a holiday, so feeling energized.
Excellent. So Carole Ann is a life coach, but she's also a media and PR coach, which I find really fascinating because so many people seem to struggle with media and PR, and it's like they feel it's this area that they have no idea how it functions. And the interesting thing about Carole Ann is that she's got over 20 years of experience in journalism and media. So I think that's what makes you really, really unique in this.
Maybe, yeah.
You've worked on both sides of things. I mean, you've worked as a journalist and you're also now working, coaching people, helping with this.
Yeah, my background is in journalism and I'm entirely self-taught as a journalist, and I got what they call a lucky break many years ago, which meant I had to pull up or shut up and just write and deliver copy to a deadline. And so the reason I say that is that, you don't have to have a degree in media studies to be a journalist or to understand how the press works. You just need to know what a unique story is, and then there is a process in how you contact the press and sell or get them interested in your story.
Mm-hmm. So how would you define a unique story?
Okay. Well, for example, a lot of people say, well, I don't have a unique story. I'm just another ... Well, there are hundreds of millions of hairdressers and dentists and doctors and all sorts of coaches, all sorts of people out there. What you have to do is find something that sets you apart from the others. And it could be the success stories you have with your clients. It could be the little niche that you run in your business. It could be that if you're a dentist, you give people films to watch, and that's a way of helping minimize pain. What you do is basically the things that you do anyway may be of interest to others because you're doing them slightly differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing. It's how do you set yourself apart? What is your little niche? And how could you get a journalist interested in what you're doing? Because what you're doing is a bit different.
Interesting. And when I train people in social media, one of the first questions that I ask them is, who are you and what makes you unique? And so many people struggle with that. It's like they think, as you said, oh, I'm just another reflexologist, life coach, whatever. People really, really struggle often to figure out what it is that makes them different.
That's right. Well, that's because they're just used to doing what they're doing. But when I'm working with some people who might want to get the press interested in them, I say, well, okay, what's your background? Could you be the story? Were you an accountant for 25 years and you changed it all and become a florist? Is that the story? The day that something changed in you that changed your life? Because a lot of magazines like Good Housekeeping and the Daily Mail love the stories of life change. So it might not be that, your floristry business is the story, but the day that you decided to give everything up and go down a different route, that's the story. Maybe it's that you add something extra to your clients. Maybe it's that you have a different way of approaching things. So, for example, you might want to detox your wardrobe. Instead of just saying, let's throw things out, you might use the word detox and declutter, and how doing that can make you feel lighter, more enabled, make choices easier for your clients when they're getting dressed in the morning. So you're doing what other personal dressers do, or stylists, but you're showing it up in a different way that is in a language which is more commercial and kind of quirkier. So you have to be a bit creative, basically.
And so what you do is you work with your clients to help them figure out what it is that makes them unique and what is kind of easy to market them to the press.
Absolutely, and listening to what your clients have said about you as well. So if they may say, you really made me feel like this, or I decided I would go on that diet now, or use those sort of testimonials to be your story too. If you were approaching a journalist and say, well, a lot of my clients are having great successes with this, this and this, that becomes the story as well. I think what we do is we take for granted what we do on a day-to-day basis and don't see it as extraordinary. But someone looking in, and if you put a bit of polish and spin on it, it becomes a story. Yes. It's unique to someone who's not in your world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like often we get so wrapped up in our own businesses that we think, oh, this is just normal, everyone does this, and that's that.
That's right. And if you are working for yourself, of course, we have to be different from the mainstream. We have to come up with things that aren't on the high street. We have to offer, go the extra mile for our clients. So it's like, what are those little extra things that you do that make a difference? Equally, the seasons can be a great way of getting press interest. So it's like, say, if your holiday season's just been and gone, because it's September now, but maybe it's like you've hit a slump in your life. You've had a lovely holiday. Now, how do you get the energy up? So it's a time for getting energy, trying new things. So using the seasons as a peg for your services as well.
New Year's resolutions.
Yeah. Well, September, exactly. September is for many really like a new year. So people start college courses or evening classes in September. So for many, it is like the change of season is like beginning of a new year. Equally, certain times of year, our energy goes down, and maybe, like, for example, January. Why not do a sort of thing on how to gently get your energy levels back? A lot of people think, oh, New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
But it's usually a time of year when we're broke, fat, tired, toxic. All the bills are coming in. We don't want to go running. We don't want to eat salad. So why not say, this is a different way of looking after yourself, losing weight, getting fit, but it doesn't mean harshness and things that you won't be able to keep up with. So it's like coming at things in a kind of more oblique sort of way, taking a quirky route round it. And that's what journalists will be interested in, because obviously they can come up with the usual stuff.
Yeah.
But they want... and the thing that I really want to stress to anyone listening to this, Holly, is a lot of people are very frightened of the press for various reasons. I mean, there's the image of the kind of door stopper or going through your rubbish can and trying to find the gossip on all the celebrities. And obviously that is far away down the other side of what the press is about. Basically, all the women and men working on magazines and newspapers, they absolutely need stories, otherwise it'll be a blank sheet of paper.
Of course.
So remember, the dynamic is, yes, you would like to get publicity in a newspaper, but equally, they need your stories. They love new stories, people contacting them, people coming up with ideas, because one, it makes their life easier. And if you've come up with a story for them and it's really fresh and different, they'll love you for that. They'll be so grateful that they'll be able to go home and have a glass of wine that evening because they filled their pages. And equally, and this is the great news for you, if you get your story in and it's never been covered before, other journalists will read it in that publication, and they're more likely to phone you as well and say, loved your piece in Red Magazine or the Times, how about doing something with us on this? So once you get in, it can lead to other things,
I think that's really, really important to focus on, because it really is all about getting that first mention, and then from there it just makes it so much easier, doesn't it?
It does, and I would say start small. Your local paper obviously really, really wants local stories. So if you're doing something interesting locally, try your local newspaper or magazine. That's your first port of call. And don't forget as well, a lot of TV and radio stations buy local papers to see what's happening locally too. And you could very well get picked up by a local radio station or program because you've been featured, and I've known that to happen too.
That's interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize that media are always kind of feeding off each other to get ideas.
Well, yes, actually, and you know why? It's because they're human, and they're overworked and underpaid like the rest of us, and they want an easy life. So if they read something in one publication, they think, that might be a good person to contact for a quote I'm writing on how to get over post-holiday blues. Or that might be someone I could pop in my notebook and try again when I know I've got another feature coming up on stress or something. So they may not use you straight away, but they'll take note of what the other journalist has written about and try you at another time.
That's interesting. Another thing that you mentioned is that you work with people on how to contact the press. I assume that there are kind of right and wrong ways.
Absolutely, because it's very easy to annoy a journalist. And I wouldn't want anyone to get off on the wrong foot. So very simply, first of all, do your research. So if you want to get into a glossy magazine, or if your piece is more of a newspaper feature or a business feature, start to buy the magazines that you think your story would best go into. Not just because you like the magazine because it's Vogue. Your story may not go in Vogue. It might be better off in something like Good Housekeeping or Woman and Home. So start to buy the publications and see the sort of features that they write. So it's really important that you do that little bit of research up front. Then see what page of that magazine or newspaper it could go on. So is it on the business pages? Is it the new gadgets or beauty pages? Is it health and beauty? Is it lifestyle, health and fitness? That sort of thing. So once you've narrowed it down to, like, I could see my bottle of shampoo or my service going on that page, find out who edits that page. So if it's Sandra Smith, say, in Red Magazine, you now know that your bottle of shampoo is going to fit on her page. Then you target that person directly. So this is a bit of research you do up front. What you don't do is pick up Harper's and Queen, phone anybody and say, I've got a lawnmower for your page. They don't write about lawnmowers because that will really annoy them.
It's a waste of their time. So.
It's wasting their time, and it shows a disrespect from the person phoning who's basically asking for something and then getting it all wrong and expecting other people to refer them to the right person. So it really shows consideration. If you find out what that person writes about, whether it's their genre, whether it's their subject, and contact them and say, hey Sandra, I really like your health and beauty pages and really enjoyed the one in this month, and I just wonder if my product would be something you'd like to sample. They're more likely to open an email or listen to a phone call like that than someone who's just randomly throwing out press releases to anybody who'll open them.
Of course, because it's relevant.
Yeah, and don't forget they get hundreds of emails and things land on their desk and phone calls all the time, so you've got to be different to get them to open the email. Equally, they're not big bad wolves. They want a story. They want something different. They've got pages and pages to fill, and it makes their life easier. If you've got a fantastic story, just ripe and ready for them, they'll be happy to feature it.
That's interesting. And what are your recommendations as far as contacting people multiple times? I mean, if you don't hear from them, should you just assume it's a no, or should you contact them on a regular basis, or send them press releases? How do you recommend working with that?
Well, I don't see anything wrong. It might be no right now, but there's no reason why it might not be right in a few weeks' time. Obviously, just keep slightly customizing the email or the press release you send in. It might be that they've just written something about holiday products and they don't need anything like that now, but they might when it comes around to the ski season and want to write about facial tanning lotions or something like so the other thing is not to do is if, say, someone wrote about a brilliant massage you could get. Don't email them straight away and say, I do brilliant massage too, because they're hardly going to be writing the same feature in a couple of weeks' time. So be logical about it. They're not going to always feature masseurs in a newspaper, So give it a few weeks and say, I noticed 2 months ago you did a piece that was on a healing massage. Well, I do something that's completely different, but you might find it interesting. Would you like to come and try it? Just because you've seen something in the paper that's like you do, they're not going to feature it straight away again.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really stuck in my mind years ago in my previous business, which was in the hospitality industry, I had sent a press release out to the editor of Spa Magazine because we wanted to invite her to a new spa that we were running. And didn't hear back, and then we worked a few months later with a press release company. They contacted her, and she said, yes, I remember seeing that press release. I've got it on my desk, in my little desk tray. And she said, I saw it and I put it aside, but it was in the back of my mind. And I think that sometimes multiple points of contact, of course not on a daily or weekly basis, but I think that can kind of help jog people's memory.
Absolutely, and don't be frightened to phone up to chase whether they've received it or not. They don't mind that if you say, did you get this? Would you be interested in coming along? Why not? They are busy. Things do fly out of my mind. I sometimes say, I'm going to feature this, and I completely forget that other things come in and quite like to be reminded. Oh, by the way, do you remember you said you were going to do something on that? Can't remember everything, So yeah, don't be frightened to follow up with a phone call.
Good. That's good to know. I think some people can be fearful of doing that.
Yeah.
So you work with people on teaching them how to do their own press releases, and then you also do kind of a done-for-you press release, correct?
Yeah. And I know it's one of those things that people think, well, I can't be bothered to do this press and publicity. It seems too much. I would say, think of it this way. If you get featured in the press, you are more likely to get more orders, more clients. You'll raise your profile.
Yes.
You'll give yourself a competitive edge, because if your competitors see that you were featured, they'll be thinking, wow, how did she get that? And it's all free. So, I mean, if anyone ever says to you, yes, I'll feature you in this magazine, but it'd be £250, that's not publicity, that's advertising. And I really want to make that point clear, because people say, oh, yeah, I was in an advertorial and it cost me £300, I didn't get anything from it. That's not the same thing.
Because people can tell that you've paid for it.
Yeah, if you pay for it, then that's an advert. And, publicity is free, and that's the great thing. It may be a bit boring to keep sending these emails out and contacting and coming up with new ideas, but, when I started out my coaching practice 10 years ago, I got a very small feature in Red magazine, and I almost filled my whole practice overnight from this little feature, and was able to put my rate card up. It didn't cost me a penny. So if you can be bothered to put this as part of your business building activities, and maybe on a Friday afternoon once a month, you sit down, come up with some ideas, a few emails that you can send out, start to build up a contact file of press. It will pay off eventually. You will get a mention if you're persistent enough. And it could change your business around for you.
I think that's very interesting, the example that you shared of having completely filled up your client list with just one media mention.
Yeah.
So that's really powerful.
Yeah. And but equally, I really, really wanted to get featured in Harper's Bazaar, because I figured there'd be lots of wealthy women looking for life coaches. Well, I was mentioning it in passing in an article, and I got 0 from it. Then I was featured in Metro News and got 50 inquiries and sign-ups to my newsletter. So don't be sniffy about, it's got to be an upmarket magazine or title. I only want the Times or the Telegraph. It can be even a free sheet. Means that there are a lot of people are reading it, and you might get a better hit rate than going for the absolute top glosses or top titles.
I think that's also interesting to mention, is that everything is valuable, even if you think it's not one of the big publications.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if you got mentioned even in the local paper, you can still put that on your website as featured in the so-and-so Gazette or, whatever news. The other great thing, because obviously everybody wants to get into the main titles, is to go to somewhere like WH Smith and see that there's millions and millions of specialist magazines out there. Start looking at some of the less top names and see if you might be able to get in some of the more obscure titles, which still have health and fitness pages, beauty pages, lifestyle pages, life change stories, but it may not be the Red Company or Glamour or New Woman magazine. It might be sort of hobbies or specialist health and fitness and different titles. You're more likely to get a take-up and a journalist say yes to you from that than you are from going to one of the mainstream ones, because they need the stories. But equally, you have got an audience who pick up that title because they're specifically interested in that particular subject. So if you have a health or fitness or lifestyle product, try some of the more obscure fitness magazines rather than the top titles.
Okay, that's good as well. Now, one of the features that services that you provide is the Be Your Own Columnist for people who do manage to land a regular column in a publication. How easy is that to get, or how challenging?
Well, it's kind of like the choicest thing you could ever have is to have your own column. But having said that, don't rule it out, because I knew of an employment lawyer who used to come to one of the networking groups I attended, and she managed to get her own column on a local website, and it had a little picture of her at the top, and it was about employment law, and all the people who advertised on that website, the plumbers, the estate agents, they started to see her weekly column online. So it doesn't again have to be, a top title. You could be a columnist on a local business website doing what you do best.
And I think the value of that is also that people are seeing you on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or monthly, and it's your face and your name are constantly showing up.
Definitely. And of course, social media, which you're very hot on, do follow all the journalists. They're all on there. They are all on there. There's, even Caitlin Moran's on there. She's the columnist of the year. A lot of the Cosmopolitan, New Woman, they're all there. Start to follow those journalists. See what the features are. You've got their names there. Contact them directly.
Of course.
They will read your tweets.
Yes.
I've got this fantastic thing. Can I send it to you? What are they going to say? No, I don't want to hear about it. No, they'll say, yeah, let's send it in. So you've already got on Twitter a great kind of address file of all the journalists. And a lot of the magazines have their own websites. So if you wanted to look up who writes who about what, go on the website and it'll probably give you the contact names of the journalists who write about those subjects.
That's a very, very good tip. What about the website Help a Reporter Out? I keep seeing that mentioned and recommended all over the place. Do you recommend working with it?
What's that? Sorry, I didn't...
It's a website called Help a Reporter Out.
Okay.
And I guess it's a website where you can set up your profile and look for reporters and journalists around the world who are looking for information on a specific topic.
I would say that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, why not do that? There's also something called, I think it's called the Press Loft or something like that. There's also something called Gorkana, which gives you updates on what all the journalists are doing. And there are some news wires where you can put requests out there or let journalists know what you're doing as well. So, there's lots of ways. I think you have to sign up to them and pay a fee, but you can put your press releases up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely use those. Why not? That's where journalists are going to go and look for case studies. Also, people love before and after things. So if you've got a client that's got a before and after story, lost weight, looks younger, changed their life, use your client if they're happy with what you've done with them as a story. All the magazines and newspapers love case studies.
Excellent. That's really good. And tell us a little bit about your business journey. How did you make the move from media and journalism to coaching?
Well, I was working in a newspaper and had been for some years as a feature writer, and there was a big lot of redundancies coming up. And I'd read this is about 12 years ago, about life coaching, and I thought what I'd do is use my redundancy money to hire a coach and set me up as a freelance writer writing for the Nationals. And I did do that using a coach. He helped me, and I wrote for The Sun and The Mirror, and The Independent and various magazines. I found it very hard as life as a freelance writer. But I loved the fact that she was so supportive, and I found it life-changing to be using a coach. And it was my coach who encouraged me to give up journalism and retrain, and I've never looked back, actually. So
excellent.
It's great.
And I love how you're using your previous experience in media and journalism along with your coaching. I think that's a really interesting blend.
Well, what happened was, it wasn't always that way. What happened was I was sitting in the back garden one time reading something, and it was in the Times, and it was about this book, I Can Make You Rich, by some kind of famous hypnotist. And,
yes, I know who you're talking about.
Former chemist.
Yes.
And I was just reading this article, having a cup of tea in the garden, and one of the things he said is, you possess specialist knowledge that other people will pay money for. And I thought, I wonder what that could be. And I thought, a lot of people say to me, by the way, can you tell me how I contact the press? And it kind of a light bulb went off. I know what I'll do is I'll invent a little niche with my previous knowledge of working in journalism, helping others to get through this, what feels like a minefield at the beginning, but actually it's just a very simple process of common sense. Know who you're contacting, make sure it's what they write about, and come up with something that's interesting and different for them. And that became a nice little kind of sideline for me.
So how can other women in business benefit from working with you? How would you recommend that they get started?
Well, people come for, as you know, a life coach for all different reasons. But I would say the number one thing that the people I like to work with are those who really want the best out of their lives and their businesses, and something's holding them back. So it's confidence, it's lack of imagination, they're stuck in a rut, they feel that they could be more, but they're not quite getting it somehow. And those are the people I like to work with, those who really do believe that they can make the most of their life and their business, but they just need a bit of support and help. And, that's to me, that's what life's about, is being as close to our potential as we possibly can be, and to make the most of every day, our relationships, our health, all that we can be. And I think the same with our businesses. Let's try and do the very best that we can with our business. And that, that's where the press and publicity comes in. If you choose not to get press and publicity, it's a large part of your business that could be suffering because of that. And it does help people to know where you are, what you do, educate people about your services, and, maybe give you a little degree of fame and recognition that you don't always get sitting in your office at home working on your own.
I think one of the big things about getting media coverage is that it kind of showcases you as an expert in what it is that you do, and it also provides a bit of social proof, because that publication has chosen you to be featured in their publication, especially if it's a print publication. I feel like that still holds a bit more weight.
I love that you said that, Holly. That is so true. It does kind of validate you, and you've got your clients saying this, that, and the other. And sometimes your clients are private, so they don't want to say that they've used your services. But to be featured in the magazine or newspaper, it really does give you kudos. It really does give you that edge, and it makes you feel, right, now now I am a pro, and now I am the expert. And you are the expert. What you've done is, the reason you set up business is because you know things, and you are a specialist in what you do. So own it a bit more. Be that expert. Be the one that the press wants to speak to. And the other thing is, once you do get a mention, they will come back again. Someone on the local paper, a young reporter who may have written about you one day, could very well end up on Woman's Own or Woman's Magazine in a few months' time, because that's the nature of journalism. They move around.
Yes.
And then she'll take her contacts book with her, and mention you again in something else. So, it's worth getting out of the comfort zone and just having a go.
I think it is all about stretching out of your comfort zone and really being okay with putting yourself out there in a big way.
Yeah, and if they say no, it's not the end of the world. They say no to more people than they say yes, and it's not fatal. You can try again. And
it's not a reflection on you as an individual. It's just the fact that they've got a limited amount of space.
Yeah. And that's happened to me before now. I've say people have said, yes, I'll write about you, and I didn't make it to press, because they run out of space or it wasn't suitable. So that's fine, you just try again. I think in business we have to be tenacious. We have to have slightly thick skin and just keep on and on. And I think if you do keep on and on, eventually you will get there.
I agree. So you also have a book out called Start Your Dream Business. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is my second book with my co-author Sarah Wade. And this is really... how you ask the question how, and as a coach, it's one of those things that when your clients say, oh yeah, that's fine, but how can I change my job, how can I change my life, how can I start a business? And in that how, there's so much fear, there's so much it's basically saying, how am I not going to do this, and how is this going to be such the biggest failure and risk I've ever done? And actually the how takes care of itself. The first thing you need is you want to do something, you want to create something, you want to sell something. That's the first important thing. Have a passion for something. And the book is real life stories of entrepreneurs, and basically they share their how they did it, how they went from sitting at their kitchen table thinking, I can't stand work tomorrow, hey, I might start making this, some baby food. How did they get that into Sainsbury's? And it's the how, and it's a lot of it is down blind alleys, a lot of rejections, a lot of literally turning up at people's offices with bag loads of samples and not going home till someone's seen them, And you think, well, that's great, because now they're on sale in Sainsbury's, and there's other people who their husbands have left them, and it was that moment, should I or shouldn't I? Yeah, I'm going to go for it, and they changed their lives. And so Sarah and I really wanted to show how successful people did it. And they're just like you and me. They don't possess some kind of amazing degree,
superpowers.
or degree in business studies. Or a lot of them hadn't a clue, made mistakes like we all do. But the main thing is they had an absolute passion for doing what they wanted to do, and they didn't give up. And how they did it. And then I provide the coaching notes alongside the stories about, if you're at this stage, why not try this? If you're thinking this, why not think that? And sort of supporting and cheerleading throughout the book as it goes on.
I like that, and I think it's very powerful that you've included so many case studies, because it's so important for people to learn by example, because they see that it really can be done by normal people like them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think they are ordinary people. They're not all Bill Gates. They're not all Steve Jobs. It can be ordinary people who started out in their kitchens thinking, I could take this to the school fete, and I can take this from the school fete to the local craft fair, and then from the local craft fair maybe I'll buy a little pop-up shop, and it goes on. And then you sort of think, well, if they can, I can. Mostly it's sheer tenacity and thick skin and nerve. I will do this. And sometimes it's easier than you think. Sometimes it's harder than you think. Everyone's story is different.
And I think that owning a business can be a real personal growth experience as well, because it really forces you outside of your comfort zone in so many ways and on a constant basis. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I think now, more than any time, it's easier to start a business with the internet. You just have to have a good idea, and there's pop-up shops and empty properties and all sorts of things, creative solutions, if you're willing to give it a go. And obviously there's a risk in anything, but when you get that there's no such thing as a job for life anymore, even that's a risk. Having a job is a risk. They might in 18 months say, sorry, we don't need you anymore. So you can actually start a business alongside a day job.
Yes, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize that it might require quite a bit of extra work in the beginning, but it is quite feasible to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with the internet, you can get little shops on eBay, on Etsy, if you make things. There's other big websites that can support that mini stalls that you might want to set up with them.
And that opens you up to their whole marketplace of people that are already shopping there.
Yeah, and it gives you a chance to kind of rehearse in public, see what the market's like, see if you're pricing it right, see if people want your stuff. But I would say if you have a burning desire, just go for it, try, and don't worry about failure. The main thing is do what you want to do. The how will take care of itself. If you wanted to drive from London to Birmingham, you don't actually have to see Birmingham from your car when you're set up in London. But that if you follow the road and the signposts, which start to make themselves known as you approach them, you will get to Birmingham. And that's the how.
Yes.
You're in your home, in your office. I want to start a cupcake business or be a milliner or whatever it is, but you don't know the how. Start taking the steps. Look for the signs, ask for help, go to other people who are doing what you're doing, keep researching. The steps will make their way known for you. The path will open up. You will find the how, and you will get there.
Oh, I love that analogy. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So along the same lines, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
Well, obviously, Oprah Winfrey is the great goddess of hope and inspiration for us all. But of course, she has a coach, as all great leaders and winners do, and her coach is Martha Beck. And when I started out 12 years ago, I loved her book. She writes with incredible humor. She's a very clever woman. She's Harvard educated, changed it all to become a life coach, but she uses wit and wisdom in her writing, and the fact that she's Oprah's coach, well, we couldn't get more inspirational than that. And what I love is she's really real, really authentic, but she provides powerful solutions for life's problems. So Martha Beck is my kind of business goddess. But anyone who's making it, Heidi Klum, the model that's made a £45 million fortune. I'm very impressed with women who make big empires, because I think more women need power.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of women out there that are inspiring me.
Thank you very much for sharing that. We're going to wrap it up in just a minute, but I wanted to see, where can people find you online so that they can connect with you?
Well, every week I'm in the Daily Express. I have a column called Happy Mondays, and I write about happiness. You can put Carole Ann Rice into Google, or my company's called The Real Coaching Company, and I've got a website too. I offer everyone a 30-minute free telephone session if anyone wants to just see if working with me is right for them, and there's absolutely no obligation to follow through if I'm not right for you. So, yeah, I'm out there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your tips with us. That was such a wealth of information.
Thank you for having me, Holly.
Oh, thanks again.
Okay.
And have a good day.
Thank you, and to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Socially Holistic Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. Please help us help more women in business by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more successful businesses there will be. So please leave a 5-star review today over at iTunes. Thank you.